Today we will discuss about defense mechanisms. You have heard of the term defense mechanisms. Before studying a defense mechanism, we have to just discuss about the tripartite theory. That you already know that tripartite theory means our psychic apparatus is made of ego, id, and superego. That you know, no? There is a balance between the ego, id, and the superego. So id is, we have already discussed, it is a primitive component. It operates on the principle of pleasure principle, and it demands the immediate gratification. So whatever we want, for that reward, the id is responsible. Id will demands for immediate gratification. We want to get something, our id will get activated. So it is usually usual time the id's demand will be irrational, illogical, and fantasy oriented. So when the id gets activated, the decision making, how to react to the id's pleasure, is made by the ego. Ego is the decision making component. But it operates based on the reality principle. We've already discussed this. It's based on reality principle. So what ego will do, it delays the seek for gratification. Whatever it's try to do, it will delays. So whatever happens in the reality, so it will be relatively rational, it will be realistic, and it will be towards the problem solving. So ego will try to avoid negative consequences that can happen because of ego. So ego is balancing. Another thing is the superego. How superego works is, whatever ego tells, superego will try to stop it. It is a moral component of personality. It works on moral principle. And so what will happen, superego will become so demanding in some people, so it will strive for moral perfection. So it can be irrational at times, so that it will strive for more perfection. So that's how the ego balances both id and the superego. So at times what will happen, there will be some imbalance. So that imbalance is causing anxiety in us. So this imbalance will cause the anxiety. That's anxiety and guilt makes the defense mechanisms. So we'll discuss how the genesis of defense mechanisms. So what will happen? The ego deals with the demands of the reality against the id and the superego. So ego is dealing with the demands of reality. In reality, whatever happens, ego will be dealing. But at times there is an imbalance between this ego, superego, and the id. So what will happen now? There will be anxiety and guilt. It will be so overwhelming. It will be so overwhelming. So ego must defend itself. At times, because of the imbalance between ego and superego and id, it will produce anxiety. The demands are not met by the id, also demands are not met by the superego, so it can cause anxiety and can cause guilt also. So what will happen now? We will unconsciously block these impulses. We unconsciously block these impulses by distorting them, distorting these impulses into a more acceptable or less threatened form. So what will happen? We unconsciously block these impulses by distorting the reality into more acceptable or less threatened form. So there was an imbalance, anxiety was created. What we'll do? We unconsciously block the impulses by distorting them into a more acceptable form. So this technique is called ego defense mechanism. These are called ego defense mechanism. So by definition, it is given by Sigmund Freud. He is the father of psychoanalysis. It is an unconscious mental process employed by ego to reduce anxiety. So this is the definition. It is an unconscious mental process employed by ego. Ego is doing the defense mechanism. It is unconscious. It is a mental process. It is employed by the ego to reduce the anxiety. So what will happen now? These defense mechanisms are largely unconscious, so it will reduce the conflict. It reduces the conflict between ego and superego. This defense mechanism reduces the conflict between ego and superego. So these, under the pressure of excessive anxiety that occurs because of this imbalance, the ego unconsciously forced to take some extreme measures to relieve the pressure. So these measures are called the defense mechanism. They are, what they will do, this defense mechanism, they deny, falsify or distort the reality. Reality will be distorted by the defense mechanisms. They will deny, or they will falsify, or they will distort, and it will operates unconsciously. The person won't be aware of it. Person won't be aware. Whatever happens is he will not be aware of it, and will try to reduce the anxiety by distorting the reality. So what the defense mechanism defend? This defense mechanism shield the individual from emotional discomfort. It will shield the individual from emotional discomfort. Whatever the anxiety happens because of some problems between the ego and superego. This will shield to reduce the person from the excessive anxiety. And whatever it happens and is different types. There are different types of defense mechanism according to Freud. There are different classes also. According to Freud, there are 9 basic mechanisms. They are denial, displacement, intellectualization, projection, rationalization, reaction formation, regression, repression, and sublimation. These are initially given by Sigmund Freud. Also, another one classification is also done by George Wayland, that we will discuss. So, classification by Freudian classification is there are psychotic defense mechanism, which are projection and denial, then neurotic, which are isolation, reaction formation, repression, and a regression, and mature defense mechanisms are sublimation. These are by Freud. Actually, what we are now following is the George Wayland classification. George Wayland classification is level 1. These are narcissistic defenses, narcissistic or psychotic or pathological defenses. Level 2 is immature defenses. Level 3 is neurotic defenses. Level 4 is mature defenses. These are the George Wayland classification. So we will discuss what are the different types. So one is pathological or narcissistic. Pathological or narcissistic defenses are denial, distortion, and projection. Then immature defenses. Immature defenses are, we can quote by ABPRS, that is a code for immature defenses. ABPRS. A for acting out, B for blocking, H for hypochondriasis, I for introjection, P for passive aggressive behavior, R for regression, S for schizoid fantasy. S for somatization. These are the immature. Abhi is immature. Abhi PRS. Acting out, blocking, hypochondriasis, introjection, passive aggressive behavior, regression, schizoid fantasy, and somatization. Then next is neurotic defenses. You can remember by Kreitz. Kreitz are controlling reaction formation, repression, rationalization, then inhibition, intellectualization, isolation, displacement, E, externalization, S, sexualization. These are the neurotic defenses. Then next is the mature defense. Mature defense are remember by Sahasa. S is sublimation. A is altruism. H is humor. A is anticipation. S is suppression. A is asceticism. These are different type of defense mechanism: pathological, immature, neurotic, and mature defenses. We'll discuss what are the pathological defenses. Pathological or narcissistic or psychotic defenses. So pathological defenses are at this level, mechanisms at this level are predominantly or always severely pathological. They are severely pathological, and these defenses effectively rearrange the external experiences usually to cope with the reality. They will rearrange the external experience. They will try to rearrange or distort the external experience to cope with the reality. And usually these mechanisms will be seen as insane to others. It is more primitive mechanism, so it will be more pathological. So it will be seen as insane to the others. First is denial. Denial is a type of protecting oneself from the reality by refusing whatever happened in the reality. So like you are diagnosed with a cancer, your doctor telling you have cancer, but you won't accept. You try to go to some other doctors for seeking for a second opinion because you denied what happened in the reality. So it is protecting oneself from the reality by refusing to perceive what happened. So it is a protecting oneself from the reality by refusing to perceive what happened actually. So it abolishes the external reality. It abolishes the external reality is abolished by denial. So it can be normal states, also in the pathological states. Like example, what we told, diagnosing a cancer patient seeks second opinion. Also, some person with ADS, they will tell, I am just an, I will just drink, but I am not an alcoholic. I am just a social drinker, but I am not an alcoholic, because he denies that he is having ADS. So that is denial. Next is distortion. Distortion is like grossly reshaping the external reality. It is grossly reshaping the external reality. So because of it is usually seen in the pathological states like hallucinations, in psychosis, or delusions can be there. So it is a gross reshape of external reality, or any megalomaniac belief. Mania patients, there will be some abnormal megalomaniac belief. These are called distortions. Next is projection. Projection is like, it is which whatever happened to you, it attributes to another. Whatever how happened, whatever how his thoughts or feelings or motives, that will he attributes to another man. So it like when you lose an exam, when you fail an exam, you will blame the teacher. It is a type of blaming only. So we will tell teacher didn't take the class, that chapter was missed, like it, you will tell, or we will tell. So it is like a displacement outward. We will project whatever happened to us to another person. So that is known as projection. That is attributing one's own feeling, thoughts, or emotions or motives to another. So what will happen, whatever one perceived, whatever one person perceived, it will be attributes to some other person. Like it's blaming, it's a type of blaming others. Example, you failed in exam and you blame teacher for not teaching properly. And like husband cheats wife but blames wife for cheating. It's like that is projection. So these are called the pathological or narcissistic mechanisms. Today we will stop here. We will later discuss about the immature and the mature defenses later. Okay, thank you.